Good evening. We'll just wait for Facebook to catch up as always. Welcome to another stream here on the Ultimate Fertility Guide. If you're watching this again, not live, then this is a whole new platform, the Ultimate Fertility Guide. I'm Natalie Silverman, host of the Fertility Podcast. And if you're used to listening to me, this is my face. Basically, the whole point of what this new platform is, it's a way for you to get to see some of the experts that I have the privilege of speaking to as part of my fertility podcast work and ask them questions. And I'm going to welcome Dr. Irfana Koita to the live stream here on the Ultimate Fertility Guide. Now, IVF Matters are the UK's first online fertility clinic, and Irfana and I have been working together for a little while, and she's here to talk about what she does, what the service is that she provides. So, Irfana, welcome. Good evening. How are you?
I'm very well indeed, Natalie. How are you?
Yes, I'm good. I'm in the north of the country where it's been sunny all day, and I know we Brits love talking about the weather, but have you had good weather today?
Oh, no, far from that. It's
Ah,
been rainfall constantly, and it's been pretty miserable.
oh, shame. Oh well, I've had sun. I've had sun, so I can be happy in that knowledge. I'll send the sun down. So let's talk about IVF Matters because you've been going for a couple of years now. Is that right?
Yes, just under, Natalie. So, we've set up the service in order to help, patients who want to fast track their journey, who've not had much luck through the NHS. They're fed up of waiting, and they just want to get to the bottom of what's stopping them from getting pregnant.
And your background, you're a fertility consultant now. I mean, you've been working in this field for some time as well, haven't you?
That's right. I've been in this field for over 15 years. I trained at King's, and subsequently I've worked at some of the leading centers in the UK. And that has given me a lot of insight into the problems that patients face, whether they're having treatment through the NHS system or privately. Um, and the intention of setting up a service such as IVF Matters was to really try and give patients and to empower them with the necessary um, facility in order for them to have the diagnosis made right away without them having to go through a lot of unnecessary processes that were time consuming, inefficient, and expensive. So by using our service, one can have all the tests that they need where they live without really coming down to a particular center. Our service is nationwide, and we are really pleased with what we've set up and the reach we have.
Because that in itself, I mean, we're both based in the UK. One of the big issues that we have here in the UK is the postcode lottery, is people's access to treatment that's affordable, and also is the difference in treatments where where depending on where people go. So they can access you from wherever they are and it's one cost. Doesn't matter where they
Indeed.
are.
Yeah. So, our prices are the same, whether you're having a scan at Harley Street or you're in Edinburgh, Manchester, where have you. Our prices are the same across the country. And that is one of our unique selling points, wherein we don't differentiate. We treat everyone at the same price in a very sort of cost effective and confidential, discreet manner.
Well, so let's talk about the services that you offer because the idea that you can access this kind of treatment from a website, even though we're in an age where we're used to getting everything we want at the click of a button, it almost sounds too good to be true. So just talk about the different treatments that you do offer, the different services available, and how literally they work.
Okay, so I think it's a good question you've raised because I think our concept is very new, and very often, patients take a while to understand how it works and get their head around it. So very simply put, we have three main services. The first one being consultations that most patients are very familiar with. We do them through Skype calls. So very similar to the chat we are having now. You log into any video call system. We perform the consultation, and because it's a video call, you're sitting in front of the consultant. You go through the questionnaire, and at the end of it, the consultant will give you a list of investigations to perform. Now, uh, being in this field for long enough, I realized that just having a fertility consultant, seemed quite inadequate, because very often fertility patients have a combination of problems. So, for example, when I see someone with polycystic ovarian syndrome, and she's got weight management issues, she's got endocrine problems which go along with it, um, and I wanted to provide a multidisciplinary team. So, we've got a weight management consultant who can look after her weight management program. We've got a nutritionist who can guide her, and we've also got an endocrinologist. Um, in the same way, for men, we've got a urologist. We've, in addition to that, got counselors, um, geneticists. We've got a full team, such that patients, don't have to look outside. We are able to provide everything in-house. So that's the first service we provide. The second being our laboratory service, which is nationwide. Interestingly, what we are now able to do is once a patient goes to our website, they can order the tests that they want. So either this has been prescribed by their local clinic or their overseas clinic. Sometimes patients are quite well educated nowadays. They themselves know what test they would need. So they come to our site, they purchase the test. We then send them the sample collection kit. More recently, we are able to send phlebotomists across the country to any postcode. So that's one of the new
Wow.
services. Yes, indeed, we've added. So we can send a phlebotomist to you irrespective of where you live. And yes, there's a small fee attached to it. But this can be quite helpful for someone who works and really does not want to spend half a day going to a clinic. But equally, we appreciate that some patients would quite like to come to a clinic and have their bloods drawn up. So for them, we've got 15 centers, 9 of which are in London, where one can go and have the blood done. We provide free packaging and postage, which means that once you've had your sample collected, you just post the sample back to us. We then process it in our laboratory. We use the leading laboratory in the country. And then once we have the report, we send an email out to the patient, giving them a copy of their results. And finally, what we've got is an ultrasound service, which is again, um, nationwide, wherein we've got over 60 centers. So one can have scans where they live, and by providing this sort of service which looks at scans, laboratory tests, we believe that we are able to assist couples make a diagnosis where they live, and they don't really have to move and go to any of the other cities in order to have these done. And this will most certainly help fast track their journey. All our prices are published on the website. All the purchase happens on the website, which means that it's literally a click of a button, and you can get all the investigations done in a very streamlined fashion without really going from pillar to post or taking appointments, which you can't keep because it's on a day that you and your partner can't both take time off at the same time.
Because that's one of the biggest stresses is fitting in all the traveling and all the appointments and having to tell work something if you want to
Yes.
tell them something, or if not, it's taking holiday. And I know that that's something that so many of us have to kind of manage, because you don't really want your work to know, and then you don't want to seem like there's something amiss. So that must be such a stress relief for a lot of people. Now, let's just go to some of the questions that have come in,
Indeed.
because Ria has got in touch and said how that they've been told that they need to have IVF after her next laparoscopy for endometriosis. So she's completely at the start of potential fertility treatment. And she's asking about the kind of questions to ask at the first few appointments, how she can prepare herself. But she's also asking if they use the tests that IVF Matters offer, is the data then usable to take to the clinics, or will the clinics ask to do it again? Because you don't want to have thought you've been so time saving and clever by being productive and proactive yourself to then to have a clinic say no, we want to do our test. So how does that work?
Okay, so that's a very good question. I can assure you that we use the top providers in the country. So, you will have no trouble in your reports being accepted, across the country. Um, we have provided this sort of service to many now over the last year and a half that we've been in service. Um, for someone like yourself who's got known endometriosis, irrespective of your age, you should most certainly have the egg reserve test to assess how active your ovaries are. I would imagine that as part of the laparoscopy, they would have looked at your tubes. Um, and the scan that we perform would also look at your uterine cavity. And your partner should do his sperm tests so that, with that, you would have covered all the basic investigations that are required in order to have a good understanding of, where you are in terms of your fertility journey.
Are you finding that more and more couples are being more proactive and getting these kind of preliminary tests? Say they've been trying. I've had a question from Alison saying we've been trying for 12 months. What tests can we do? It's a similar type of question. So if because is it still a year that doctors say, or is it 2 years depending on your age before they will put you through tests, especially in the UK on the NHS?
Yeah, so in the UK on the NHS, unfortunately, they make couples wait for 2 years, which in my mind is too long. So generally, if you're under 35 and you've tried for a year, then it's about time you have your test done. And the reason for that being that typically, we would expect 85 out of 100 couples to be pregnant at the end of 1 year of trying, which means that you fall in the 15% who've tried for a year and haven't fallen pregnant. So you most certainly need to be investigated. For someone who's over 35, even 6 months can be long enough, which means that at the end of 6 months, you should most certainly have tests done, not necessarily treatment, but most certainly you should have all the tests to try and work out where you are, how active your ovaries are, your partner's sperm needs to be looked at so that if, action needs to be taken, it's done sooner rather than later, and you've not wasted time in trying to come to a diagnosis, because the effects of age are irreversible, and you don't want to lose more and more time and then regret it later on.
Okay, I've got quite a specific question now from Kerry saying, should we get tested for sticky blood and NK cells before doing IVF? That's quite a specific question. If you want to explain a bit about what she's asking for people that are
Yeah.
listening and have got no idea.
So, I get asked these sort of questions quite a lot, as to what investigation should be done. Now, if from what you've said, you've not had IVF treatment before, if you are someone who's had multiple miscarriages, then yes, even prior to IVF, you may want to have all these tests done. I would suggest that you are under the care of a fertility expert and not try and do these tests, because you'll get a whole lot of results which you won't be able to interpret. um, you know, with the immune tests, so the NK cells, that's quite a controversial area. So again, you want to be with a consultant who can, go through the report and make it more meaningful, and look at these results in context to your personal story. So the answer all depends on, where you are, whether you've been pregnant before, whether you've had miscarriages, and so on. Um, so it's not mandatory, but it could be that in your specific condition, it may be very relevant.
Okay. So don't be afraid to ask the questions.
Indeed.
Now, I do apologise if you're looking and wondering what I'm doing. I am trying to look at Facebook to get your questions. And as typically with anything technical, it's kind of playing up and hanging on that circle. So
Indeed.
don't think I'm not
Yeah.
interested in what
No, no, no,
Irfana's
don't
saying.
worry.
Um, Victoria asks, what advice would you give? We're starting a second cycle of IVF after the first one has failed.
Again, a very common question. I see a lot of couples who come to me for a second opinion. They've had treatment elsewhere. They've now been told, why they've not fallen pregnant. So the most important thing is to try and understand why treatment did not work.
Mm.
No doubt, most commonly we can't really pinpoint, but very often we can. So before you embark on more and more treatment, it's quite valuable to try and learn from the previous cycle. So you need to sit down with your consultant, go through every step, and see how you can better it. So no point having treatment after treatment. You've got to try and ensure that the next cycle is better than the first, and tweaks to the previous cycle, even if they're very minor, can actually play a very big role in trying to help improve the overall outcome. So you need to look at the cycle and then try and fine tune it in a manner that you get a much better outcome. So whether it means, other things like improving your nutrition, looking at other areas, doing some genetic tests, doing an endometrial biopsy, whatever it is, depends on where, the problem seems to be. So if it looks like a male factor problem, and the sperm quality was not very good, then it may be worth taking the opinion of a urologist and trying to improve the sperm quality. So yes, your question is very general, but one needs to look at the cycle and try and pinpoint which areas can be improved. Of course, sometimes if it's a genetic problem and the cause is not identified and it's happening at the microscopic level, then you may not be able to do much. But at least you don't want to just keep having cycle after cycle without reflecting on the one that you've had already.
And as far as how you work with patients, because obviously, you treat fertility patients, and if somebody's had a failed cycle, I mean, that aftercare, because it's something that I hear from a lot of people, that kind of emotional support after a failed cycle seems to be lacking in a number of people's experience. And I know it's something that all clinics want to say that they offer and say that they offer, but yet the conversations that I have with patients, it seems that there is a bit of a drop off when a cycle has failed. So like, how would you work with somebody after? You just talked about, obviously you'd look at these different things, but from an emotional support, I mean, will people get to talk directly with you after a failed cycle? Is that normal to get to see your actual consultant, or do you normally have to see somebody else?
So I'll tell you, I've through experience known that the most important time where you should not fail your patient is actually when they've had a negative test.
Mm.
When they've had a positive test, they're very excited, they're very happy, they can't thank you enough. But the most important time in their journey is when they've had a negative test. Now, because I know the value of this, I usually, will make contact with my patient. So I will normally know exactly when who's testing. And if I don't hear from them by the afternoon, I know that, they've not had a positive report. And, usually if they've had a positive test, they call me right away and I know. So I usually take the effort and I call them myself and I ask them what happened, and then they tell me it's negative. And then I, try and provide them that support, um, go through the questions that are coming in their mind. Um, with my sort of service, because I'm the lead consultant, I'm in complete control and I take that first step. I don't wait for the patients to come to me. And I know that they usually appreciate that, because that's when they're feeling really low. And if you don't reach out, you've really not, um, provided a service which was, um, you know, sort of, caring enough. Um, and, you know, I think it's important that doctors go that extra mile. When someone's miscarrying, that's when they need you the most. When someone's had a negative pregnancy test, that's when they need you the most. My patients are very lucky because they have my direct number, they have my email, they call me. Um, so yes, you need to be in a setup where someone's following up on you so that you're well looked after, and you're not having to actually make that first step, because you can't. You're emotionally so drained by then that you're never going to come and say, oh well, I've now got a negative test. You will if you had a positive. You'll be telling everyone. So I make sure that I call them and make contact. um, and yes, if they want to have some time and get their head around it, and they email me back saying, yes, we'll call you in a day, then that's fine. They need that space. um, but yeah, I'm very sort of mindful. So I try and take that first step,
Okay.
and make contact.
That's good to hear. We've not got long to go, so I'm just going to
No.
share your details and just ask another question. This is the website for Irfana, for IVF Matters, and that's their Twitter handle. And I'm just showing the kind of some something about the his and hers fertility test that you can carry out at home, because Paula has asked what tests can be done at home. So you mentioned bloods before. Do you just want to explain? Because I've also actually had Dan ask me about giving a semen sample at home. So you've got his and hers fertility test that you can carry out at home. Do you want to give us some of those tests?
Yes, indeed. So, there are some tests, especially, the single tests. So, for example, the AMH test,
We just lost you. Ifana,
hello, I think you've got me back.
I've got you back. You were just saying about the
Okay,
AMH
sorry.
test. That's okay.
Yes. Okay, so that can be done at home because we provide you the entire kit. It's a simple lancet. You prick yourself. You just need a few drops of blood. Um, you post the kit back to us, and we can process that. Those are really popular. Again, tests like the vitamin D levels, for example, are can be done at home. So all the single tests, most of them, can be done at home. The ones which are packages usually require more blood, and those, of course, have, one has to draw the blood up. Um, for men, unfortunately, the samples have to be processed right away, the sperm samples. But semen culture, for example, can be done at home. You can, produce the sample, post it back to us, even if it takes 2-3 days. It does not matter. Um, a lot of information is on the website, so do feel free to log in. We also have a live web chat team, who'd be very happy to assist you. Equally, we are very good at responding to email. So if you email admin@ivfmatters.co.uk, you can be most certain that you will get an answer. I don't think we've ever missed an email. We are very, very sort of careful, and we make sure that every email, every query is answered. So if you have any doubt, feel free to reach out. We've also got a number to call. So you can either call us, email us, talk to our web chat team. One way or the other, you will get an answer to your queries.
It's good to know. It's good to know that there is that, because that's the annoying thing as well, when you've got something that's just driving you mad and you've put it out on Facebook or in some of the communities, which are amazing online, but you want that expert opinion. Irfana, it's been great hearing from you. Thank you, and thank you for answering all the questions. And we will speak again.
Indeed. It's a lovely venture that you've started, Natalie. So good luck.
Thank you.
I hope you can help people grow their families.
Thank you. Well, let's just tell you, thank you, Irfana. Let's just tell you what's going on next time, because we've got a rescheduled stream coming here on the Ultimate Fertility Guide. We're going to be speaking to Pamela Hirsch from the Baby Quest Foundation. Haven't got the time confirmed, but I will be reminding you. It's coming up in a couple of weeks because we're nearly in June. So don't miss Pamela. And thank you again for your support. Thank you for all your questions. You can always email Natalie at thefertilitypodcast.com if you don't want your question to be read out with your name attached. I do appreciate that this is a sensitive topic, and I know that some of you don't even want to like the pages, but there's also the Talk Fertility group that you can join.